For some reason, it's okay for guys to have sex on the first date, but it's not okay for girls to have sex on the first date. Double standards are trash. Hey guys, it's Sharon. Today's video is obviously very special because, as you can tell, I am in my car, and I am not in my car that often. I'm usually in my bedroom, so I was like, you know what, maybe I should go outside for once. Today we're doing another girl talk, and I'm excited about this one because it's all about adulting. I am 22, arguably an adult. Do I feel like one? Probably not. I'm also a Gemini, so I'm like a kid at heart. Maybe that has to do with it, but who knows? So I'm gonna answer your questions, and I've split them up into categories. The first one being college and university. I'm gonna talk about driving in cars, jobs and money, relationships, and of course, the gynecologist. Every single girl's favorite, I know. So if you guys do want to see more videos like this, give us a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. Also follow me on Instagram and my Twitter so you can view my videos just like this one. And if you want to see more, I have a whole girl talk video playlist on my channel, and I make a lot of very girl related videos because I'm not afraid to talk about some stuff that some people are, you know? So I got you, sis. If you want to see more, definitely subscribe for more. But enough about that, I want some boba. So we're gonna talk about college and university on the way there. How do you decide what college to go to and what to study? This depends on so many freaking things. So school is very, very expensive. College and university is no freaking joke. So what a lot of people do is they will go to a community college in their hometown and get their first 2 years of college there, which is their AA, that's their associates. And then they will transfer to a university and finish the rest of their bachelor's degree there. I also want to say right now that there is nothing wrong with going to community college. Like, we gotta save some money, and honestly, you're essentially taking the same core classes that you'd have to at a university. Like, I had to take math classes and Englishes and all that. I guess it really depends if you want to stay close to home or if you want to go out of state or what you want to study, because some schools have a better program for what you want to study than others. I knew I wanted to stay close to home, and honestly, I wanted to stay at home because my parents literally told me, if you stay at home, we'll let you live rent free. So I was like, oh, bet. I don't have to spend money on like living on campus and then buying my own food on campus as well. So that's something to consider if you want to save even more money. Also, about knowing what to study, honestly, from the get-go, I always knew I liked words more than numbers. But for some reason, I thought being a business major was cool. So my first week of college, I started as a business major. They gave me a layout of like what my university plan would look like, and it was nothing but like math classes. And I was like, oh no, business is not for me. I decided to do mass communications with a focus in public relations. And I based it just off of stuff I like. PR is a lot of like convincing the public your product and your person, your thing is amazing. I kind of already do that on YouTube, you know, like I'm kind of convincing you to watch my videos and think that I'm amazing, but ultimately it's up to you, of course, not to toot my own horn. It really is just a lot of things to consider, and I hope this kind of helps because there is no solid and real answer to it. How long did it take you to get your degree? This is gonna be another tangent. In high school, you should have the option to take AP classes or to dual enroll. AP classes, you can get college credit if you pass the exam with a certain score. Now, dual enrollment, that's like automatic college credit if you pass the class. I didn't know that in high school. I did nothing but AP classes, and it was either my AP Lit or my AP Lang, which is essentially like English. I didn't get all points possible on one of the exams, so I had to take English 2 in college, which I was like, okay, well that's great, now I have to pay out of pocket for this. Luckily I had scholarships, but because of that I had to take this class, which I could have not have taken if I had just gotten the credits while in school. So I would look into getting college credits while you're still in high school so you can finish your degree quicker if you want to. Because of that, I was able to graduate honestly in 3 years, which like typical is the 4 years. I also did take classes during the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter. So I was technically a college student literally year round just because I really just wanted to get out of there and finish school. I also want to mention that there is no set time frame to finish your degree. You can finish your degree as fast as you want. You can take your sweet time. There is no rush. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Take your sweet time if you want to, is fine. What is college really like? Friends, parties, schoolwork, relationships, is it hard? College is different for everyone. So I didn't live on campus. Because of that, I don't think I got the full college experience, which I was honestly okay with it. Like, I did not go to one single college party. My tunnel vision for college was get in, get out. I didn't really care about the other stuff that goes with it. So it depends on you personally, like what experience you want to get out of it. As for making friends and meeting other people, like it's relatively easy, I would say. I was never looking to make friends friends, but I always ended up making friends because you'll just end up being friends with the people around you who like sit next to you. At one point or another, you're gonna ask each other for notes, for example, or if one of you misses class, you're gonna be like, hey, what happened on this day that I missed class? Now, schoolwork wise, I thought college was a breeze. Again, that really depends what you study, for example. My classes weren't some like microbiology and calculus and all that difficult stuff. So you gotta be good at what you're taking and studying, obviously. I did more work in AP classes than I did in college. That says a lot. Did you do any internships in college? I did do an internship, and I believe it was a requirement for my degree, if I'm not mistaken. I did it remotely, which means I can do it from the comfort of my own home. I interned for a record label, so that was super fun. I'm working in music. I love music. It was kind of like an influencer type of internship. So we were brand ambassadors for this record label. There is an internship out there for everyone. It depends what you're into. I would suggest Googling stuff that you like and seeing what the options are. LinkedIn is a great place to find internships like that. If I'm not mistaken, that's where I found mine. Do you think a gap year is a good idea? I can't answer this completely because it all depends on the person. Some people are really good at being able to step out of one thing and step back in it whenever they can. Some people need to get it all done out of the way at once. Everyone is different, and I feel like you really have to know yourself and know your limits and know what you can do and can't do when it comes to deciding if you want to take a gap year. Most people will take a gap year and then realize, oh my god, school wasn't for me, which that is not a bad thing. It's just a lot of things to consider. Now for questions about driving and cars. How is it possible to practice getting a license? Is it hard to drive? I personally don't think it's hard to drive. I was a little bit anxious when I first started driving just because a car can seem really intimidating. The way I learned to drive, my dad would take me to a college campus after classes were done, and we would practice in the parking lot. And then eventually we upgraded from an abandoned parking lot to like my neighborhood. And then from my neighborhood, we just slowly started expanding out some more. I think what scared me the most were turns. Instead of slowing down and turning, I would speed up, which is the opposite of what you want to do. It's really not that bad. It's one of those things you just overcome, and then you're like, oh wow, that was nothing. How do you prepare for a driving test? So like I mentioned, I did that, the whole driving around abandoned parking lots, driving around my neighborhood, then taking it like slightly outside to the city, then to the highway and all that. There are also a lot of practice tests online because a driver's test just isn't you driving. It's also like a written test too. So I would definitely use some study guides and some practice tests. And it really isn't as bad or scary as it sounds. And a lot of the people testing you are also very understanding. So I just got to the boba place and I'm all up in the camera because it is very dark where I parked. But I'm gonna put my order in and then I'm gonna grab my boba and then get back to these questions. So bear with me. Gotta get the shield on. All right, let's go. I got my boba and I got Thai tea because I'm a sucker for Thai tea forever and always. Amazing. Anyways, how do I take care of a car? How often do you get it checked? Your car is your baby, and like a baby, every car is different. I know for my car, I should get an oil change around like every 5,000 miles I've driven. I'll know something is up with my car when one of my dashboard lights goes on, and it's a light that's not usually on. Luckily, my car also tells me when my tires have like low pressure, which a fun life hack, if you live near a Wawa, Wawa gives you free air for your tires, so you don't have to pay like, I don't know, it's a couple bucks maybe, but we love the free hack anyway, so now you know. Other than that, I don't really know much about taking care of a car, and I know I'm not the only one. Have you seen that meme where it's like me calling my dad when the mechanic says I need more than an oil change? Because me, but not after this. So luckily for us, there is Fixed, who is the sponsor of this video, so thank you so much for sponsoring. So Fixed is a sensor and app duo that gives you info and real-time data on what is going on with your car in layman's terms. Fixed is super simple to use. The first thing you do is just download their free app, which is right there. Now, next thing you do is you take the sensor, you plug it into a port that is typically under your steering wheel or somewhere under your dashboard. This works on every gas-powered car after 1996 and every diesel car after 2008. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect my sensor to my app. All right. And now the next part is to plug in my sensor, and these are the possible spots that you can have your OBD2 port. With my luck, my port is directly above my pedal, so I'm gonna have to get out of the car for this one. So this spot right here is where my sensor goes, and as you can see, that's where my pedals are. Tap to scan. Oh my god, there's actually an issue found? Fix is saying, nah girl, you just got one issue with some missing data. So I'm chilling. I'm glad that I know it's there. Now, if you want to kick it up a notch, there is an option to get Fixed Premium at an extra cost. Premium comes with a mechanic hotline. So if you have a car question or you need like a trusted second opinion on something, you can call an actual certified mechanic. I know there are some great mechanics out there, but as a female, I can't help but feel nervous and sometimes even a little bit belittled when I go to one because I don't understand everything that they're saying. Fixed at least gives me an idea of what is going on, and it gives me more confidence, so I'm not completely going to this blindsided. Your girl is not getting scammed today. If you would like to get a bit more car savvy, use my discount code Just Sharon for 67% off and the option of a free trial of Fixed Premium. Are license plates customized or random? From my understanding, your license plates are random, but it is definitely possible to get customized license plates. I don't know about every other state, but I know in Florida there's like over 100 options from which you can choose, and they're all organizations. So when you choose a certain organization for your license plate, the annual fee that you have to pay for your plate goes to that organization. And then if I'm not mistaken, if you want to customize the letters and the numbers of the actual plate, I think that's another fee. But that is something that varies state by state. So I would definitely like look into your DMV website for it. Should I buy or lease a car? I think this all comes down to your own personal preference and what you are willing to spend. I lease my car, meaning after 3 years, I can trade this car in for another car, or I can choose to keep this one and just pay off what I have left to own the car. I personally really like the idea of having a new car every 3 years. Some people don't care about that though, and they just want a car for a long time, which is totally okay too. I know leases come with a limited mileage. For example, you might only be able to use up to 36,000 miles for 3 years. When you own a car, there are no limited amount of miles that you can use. It's just one of those things where you have to sit down, really look at the math if you're wanting to be very price considerate, and then also look at all your pros and your cons. I think I'm gonna sit here for a hot minute and enjoy my boba because why not? So this next category is jobs and money. Any tips for job interviews? Do you need a degree? Needing a degree, that varies on job to job. I mean, you don't need a degree to work in like a store part-time, for example, but you might need a degree to be like a marketing assistant or something. Now, when it comes to job interviews, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is dress the part. The whole point of an interview is to look nice and be presentable and look presentable. Another thing is when you go into an interview, I would suggest to be very honest. I would also suggest to have your own questions prepared because you're being interviewed, but you can also interview the employer as well. And honestly, I think that shows interest too, that you're like, yeah, I'm interested in this job and I have my own questions about it too. It could be questions like, what is a normal work day like? How do you handle situations like COVID-19? There's so many questions you can think of, and I'm sure you can Google some and it'll give you an idea too. Also be yourself, because that is the most important thing at the end of the day too. How do you manage a job and school? This comes down to the job and how much school you're doing. For example, if you have a full-time job, instead of maybe doing like 5 classes a semester, if you're in college, for example, you might want to cut it down to 3 or 4 or even 2, depending on the workload and the type of classes and depending how much you work. So it's one of those things where, like, again, you have to sit down and plan it out and consider all your options. My first job was a store. So when I was in school, I would be like, okay, here's my schedule. This is my class schedule. I can't work on any of these days. I would only work on the weekends or I would work weeknights. Everyone just has to be flexible in the end, except school, because that one you can't really be flexible about. So that is also another really important question to ask in an interview, for example. How do you find a job? Like I mentioned, my first job was retail, and I knew I wanted to work there just because I really liked that store. So I just went into the store and I asked them, I'm like, are you guys hiring? And they're like, yeah, fill out an application here. For my radio job, I just started thinking, where could I work that has to do with the entertainment industry? So I just Googled like radio jobs in Tampa. Honestly, Google is your best friend. Also, LinkedIn is another great source too. Just think of the stuff that you really like and you want to see yourself doing, and you can see yourself doing and not hating it. How do you save up money? My parents will tell you that I'm cheap. I'm not cheap, I'm just very smart about my money. If I don't need it, or if I'm not gonna use it more than once, I kind of tell that to myself when I'm buying something. So it's good to discipline yourself. Another thing that you can do is whenever you get a paycheck, maybe set aside like 80% of that and save 20% for you to go out and spend. Either way, it's very important to have some savings because you never know when you're gonna need it, and honestly, you're gonna thank yourself in the future. How do you file taxes? Don't we love that we never learn this stuff in school? Anyways, your job will give you a W-2 form to fill out with your info. That is fancy talk for a government sheet. Right around tax season or a little bit before, the companies that you're working for will send you a form with how much you've made. All you have to do is then fill out an IRS form, which is a 1040 if I'm not mistaken, and then mail that to the IRS or submit it online or have someone file your taxes for you. I'd say online is best because it's quicker and you can get your money through direct deposit, which means like they just directly deposit the money into your bank account. I'm gonna go ahead and get a move on right before this next category category, which is relationships, everyone's least and most favorite thing to talk about. Do you think it's best to wait until marriage or get some experience first? My opinion on this shouldn't really matter because this should be your own opinion and your own morals and how you feel about it. What I will tell you is, if you feel pressured, don't do it. Do not do anything that you don't want to do. It's funny because there's this saying that's like, well, how do you know to buy a product without a trial? So, I mean, take that as you will. It is ultimately up to you and what feels right in your heart and for you, because no one knows what's best for you more than yourself. How are friendships when you are an adult? What kinds are useful, and are you still friends with people from high school? I find my friendship circle just getting more exclusive and smaller, which I don't think is a bad thing at all, because as you get older, you kind of realize you're like, well, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for petty drama, or I don't have time for complications. Like, you just want something that's sweet and simple. And there's nothing wrong with that. I honestly don't talk to that many people from high school, and it's not because I hate them now or something. They're all great people. You kind of grow apart after some years. That's just life. People grow and outgrow each other all the time. I don't think relationships are hard unless you make them hard, and I think as you get older, your tolerance for hard relationships kind of gets smaller and smaller. Do toxic friends come around a lot once you get older? So this kind of goes with what I just said. I personally don't have the time and patience for toxic stuff, so the second I see it, I cut it out. I feel like a lot of toxicity when you're older comes from people being bored. People just have nothing better to do with their lives that they create drama, and essentially I think that's how all drama is created to begin with. As long as you know what you're surrounding yourself with and what you don't want to be surrounded with, I think you can avoid toxic people. Although, I can't talk about a work environment, because if I've experienced toxicity in my adult life, it has always been from my work environment. You can't really pick and choose your coworkers or your higher ups, so sometimes you gotta bite your tongue and take it or leave it, which, for anything like me, you leave it. Is it horrible to have a one-night stand? Is it okay to have sex on a first date? This kind of goes back to the question about like before marriage, after marriage. It is up to you. It is what you think is right and what feels right. Do not let yourself be slut-shamed, and do not slut-shame others, because at the end of the day, it is your life, it is your body. You do whatever you want. If you want to have a one-night stand, go for it. For those of you that don't know what a one-night stand is, that is basically when you just hook up with one person one night, never see them or talk to them again. Sex on the first date, I know there's like some stigma around it, because for some reason it's okay for guys to have sex on the first date, but it's not okay for girls to have sex on the first date. Double standards are trash. Like I said, you do what you want, sis. Do not let people's opinions control and ruin your life. When should you move out? Should you get roommates or live alone? Again, this is another question that really depends on how you are. I'm 22 and I still live with my parents because I'm in no rush to move out. Can you not do that? Whether it comes to roomies or living alone, that depends on the type of person you are. So I'd say do it if you really think that you can live with this person, you know, or you know you can live with that person, because like your house is your happy place and you don't want to live in a really crappy environment. For example, in Hispanic culture, I'm not supposed to move out until I get married, which anyways, but like in American culture, it's like, oh, 18, go ahead, move out. Whether it's in your culture or not, you can move out whenever you want, or whenever your parents force you to, I guess. So now, of course, the category we've all been waiting for, the gynecologist. How old are you supposed to be for your first Pap smear? So a Pap smear is a procedural screening for cervical cancer. It's recommended once every 3 years, and you're supposed to get your first one at 21 years old. Now, I will tell you one thing, a Pap smear is uncomfortable. There's no way around it. It just feels weird, but it is also necessary. You're on like those little doctor beds or whatever. There are these little stands where you put your feet on. You're sitting up there in like a crouching position, but you're lying down, and your hoo-ha is all up in your gyno's face. And then they go in there with this tool, and that thing basically stretches out your hole, so then your gyno can go in there and scrape some of the stuff. It just feels uncomfortable, but it's not painful. And then they test that, and that is basically your Pap smear. Does it hurt when you get tested for STDs? So there are a lot of different STDs, and there are a lot of different ways to get tested for STDs. Sometimes all you might have to do is just pee in a cup, but there can also be like a cheek swab. You might get a blood test. You can get a physical exam where your doctor just looks at your genital area to see if there's any issues down there, or you can get your source tested where they take a sample sample from your sores or your warts or your blisters, or they could even use a swab and take some of your discharge too. Like, there's so many different tests. I think the one I've only ever really had to do was just a urine test, and of course like a physical exam too. But I mean, if you're going to a gyno, you're kind of getting a physical done because your gyno's looking at that downstairs area anyways. For the most part, it's not painful. And for those of you that do not know what an STD is, that is a sexually transmitted disease. Is there a proper time to start going to the gynecologist, and do I have to? So the best time to start going to the gynecologist, I think, is when you start having sex. Usually I'd say most girls start going to the gyno around like 18. I feel like a lot of girls aren't comfortable talking to the mom and being like, can you take me to the gyno? But then at 18, you're like an adult, you can go to the gyno without your parents' permission or having them to sign off for something. And yes, you do have to go to the gyno because, ladies, vaginal health is very important, and that is one thing that you do not want to abandon, because who knows what can go wrong, and you just want to keep your downstairs area clean and healthy. What is it like going to the gyno? How do you find one, and how often do you go? Do I have to shave? And like I explained, you get in that chair, they do a physical, it depends what you're going in for, of course. It also starts like a regular doctor's visit where like they ask you, questions about like when was your last period, are you sexually active, how much do you weigh, all that stuff, you know, like that regular checkup things. Like I said, it depends the purpose that you're going for, but for the most part, they are going to look at your downstairs area so you don't have underwear on. It might feel a little bit weird and awkward at first, but also understand that it's just human anatomy too. My first gyno experience, my mom took me to a male. I was like, I do not feel comfortable with this at all. I found out what my insurance was from my dad, and then I googled gynecologists in Tampa that take my insurance, and that is how I found my gyno, who's a young woman that I can relate to and I trust and I feel more comfortable with. I just personally feel more comfortable with female gynos. Some people don't care, you know. Your comfort is most important because it is a very vulnerable situation. You don't have to go to the gyno often. Usually it's just recommended to go once a year, you know, for a checkup, make sure everything is good. If you feel like you might have an STD or you might have some issues going on downstairs or you want to get some birth control, then you can go more than once, obviously. You do not have to shave when you go to the gyno, but I would say at least like trim and clean up because they are going to be all up in that area, and sometimes hair can cause more smell down there and it can make things a little bit messier. So I'd say as long as you're nice and trimmed, you don't have to actually shave. Your gyno has also seen so many vaginas. They've seen everything. I feel like nothing will faze them anymore. What is birth control? When should I get it? Birth control is any method used to prevent pregnancy, but birth control can also be used for a lot of other things too. It can be used to treat irregular periods, PCOS, cramps, acne, and a bunch of other things. It's not just to prevent pregnancy, but that is like the biggest reason that people know it as. Now, as for different types of birth control, there are so many different types, and it's important to find one that works with you the best and what makes you most comfortable and what reacts well with your body. Now, when you should get it, I would say it depends maybe when you're sexually active, maybe if you have really bad acne. That's something to talk to your doctor about and your parents about if you are under 18. I'm debating making a whole video on birth control because I get a lot of birth control questions, so let me know if you guys do want to see that video. Now, all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, give us a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. If you have your own adulting questions that I didn't answer and you want me to, go ahead and comment them as well. And if you know the answer to some of the comments, help each other out too, because that is what we're here for. I realize there is no comment of the day today because we're in my car, but comment of the day is girl power. Now, shout out of the week goes to Amberly. Thank you so much. If you do want to be shout out of the week, just follow me on my Instagram and stay active. And of course, if you want to see more videos, I have a bunch more on my channel. I have a whole girl talk playlist. If there's another girl talk video, a specific one that you want to see, let me know. Subscribe for more if you want to see more. And all that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Cheers. I mean, bye.